Hello and welcome to the Trust Factor Podcast, the only podcast that guarantees your success when you implement its divine age-old teachings. Hi everybody, happy Friday. Thanks for joining us on the Trust Factor Podcast. I want to remind everybody, the last few weeks we haven't had interviews on Fridays. That's our regular routine. I've been away. It's been a little bit difficult to set up these interviews from across the world. However, God willing, in the coming weeks, we will be back into our regular routine, plus so much more. There are big plans, my friends. There are events. There are programs that are being planned. There are people who are coming on board to help take this program to the next level, my friends. Again, if you want to be a part of that, reach out. We're still on the ground floor, my friends. This is only the beginning of season 2. Let's put a bow on what we were talking about yesterday. A very important discussion. Obviously, one that garnered a lot of feedback from a lot of people. We're talking about that individual that we know and love, and I say that tongue-in-cheek. That individual who we see coming from a mile away, and we start to sweat. We start to sweat for one of two reasons, because we know a battle is about to ensue, or we know we have to now completely negate our own will. We need to completely get rid of our own opinion, because as soon as we engage this person, it becomes a battle, and we're not into a battle, and therefore we choose to withdraw, which, by the way, is the right approach. And it's a tough one for a lot of people. If you find that it's tough for you, when somebody that you encounter who is a battle-ready individual, who wants to argue everything, who cannot accept anything that anybody else says, and always wants to be right, the correct approach to that individual, to that encounter, is to withdraw your argument. Don't get into it. It's futile. It's completely useless. I know multiple people that are so much like this, that are so argumentative, that they will even argue when you agree with them. In fact, they can't even allow you the opportunity to agree with them. That as soon as you start to respond to any of their statements, they see that you're coming with a response. They see that you're gearing up to open your mouth, and they're already shutting you down. They're already saying, no, you don't understand. What do you mean I don't understand? I'm coming to agree with you. They don't even give you the opportunity to agree because they need to dominate the conversation. That all tells you one thing. That tells you very clearly that these people are really just striving for control. They're demanding a sense of control. They're demanding to prove, again, not just to you, but also to themselves, that they know everything. It is a very, very difficult situation to be in, difficult person to be around. Those individuals are locking themselves out of a relationship with their creator. Those people are locking themselves out from learning the truth. Now, it's one thing if you have an individual who will argue with you on something that they've spent a lifetime doing. You can have a conversation with an auto mechanic, a guy who's spent 50, 60 years fixing cars, and he can tell you everything he knows. And you should probably listen to somebody like that, especially if you don't have any experience fixing cars. But if that individual is going to start talking to you about any other subject in the world of which they know probably as much or not even as much as the average person does, then withdraw. Allow them to win that conversation. Because really what they're trying to do is to bring what's called machloket. A machloket is a disagreement. They're actively looking for disagreements because multiple reasons. One of those reasons is that a lot of people that fit this category don't do well with quiet. They don't do well when there's nothing to fill the void of the air, when there's no conversation happening and there's no television on, or there's no music on, and it's just them with their thoughts. They're in a very difficult place. And so oftentimes they will drum up conversation. They will drum up disagreements and arguments just to keep the conversation flowing because they don't do well with quiet. There's many reasons. The point is, if you're not that person, then don't engage. Disengage. It's not constructive. It is destructive. Just like the book said, it's got potential to end somebody's life if you take it to an extreme. So disengage, my friends. Stay away from machloket, even though the Torah itself has plenty of disagreement and machloket between our sages who sat down and gave us the Gemara, the rules of engagement, how to be a Jew, a kosher Torah and mitzvah keeping Jew, it's all in there. But that was created in a time where we had none of this, or we had very little of it. And they did it for the sake of truth, to figure out how we're supposed to live. And if that meant having that discussion and that argument, they had to have it for the sake of heaven, for the correct purpose. And even then, they ran into what's called machloket, disagreements. But Hashem says clearly, you need to avoid disagreements at all costs, especially if they're not for the sake of heaven. Now, let's move forward, my friends. A person doesn't have to be a genius to prove emunah, he says. What does it mean by proving emunah? Emunah is faith. What he's referring to over here is proving that faith works, that connecting back to your Creator, finding purpose in Him actually works. And that's the only thing that you should be investing in. How do you prove that? He says one doesn't have to be a genius. He must shed any obsession to justify his preconceptions and be willing to listen rather than argue. Then it's possible to prove the truth in one of two ways. So first step, you have to be willing to stay quiet. You have to be willing and open to learning things that you don't know, not being bent on going around teaching everybody all the things you think you know. So that's step number one. That's why these people, he said yesterday, will never learn the truth, because they're not open to the truth. They're not open to any other argument. Sometimes it says, so first of all, it says there's a negative way. It says there's two ways. One's a negative way, and one, I'm assuming he's going to call it a positive way. What's the negative way? Allow me to summarize this for you. The negative way of proving that having faith in God is the correct approach to life and avoiding these arguments, he says, is by way of the process of elimination. We all understand that. One way is to say, look, it doesn't make sense that I should invest 80, 90, 100 years of my life. Everything that I am and that I aspire to be, and all of my talents and all of my abilities, that I should invest all of those in this material world. Anything in this material world, anything that is finite, that has limitations, that is limited by time and space, if that's what you hitch your wagon to, so to speak, where you say, this is me. I am the world's number one neuroscientist. I am the world's number one brain surgeon. I am the world's number one electrician. I am the world's number one X. Whatever it is that's in this world that is limited by time and space, if that's what you use to define yourself by, then you've chosen incorrectly. Why? He says, because it's limited by time and space. That means that you think that 80 to 100 years of your life spent in this world is going to end in the grave, like we said yesterday, that you're going to be 6 feet under and that's it. You cease to exist. There's no soul. There's no continuation. It's all the here and now. You've missed the boat, my friend. You've missed out on life. It is so much more than that. The concepts of this world are here to serve a purpose, to give you a sense of purpose, to give you a sense of accomplishment, and to give you the tools, i.e. the resources, to be able to focus on building your next world. That's the negative approach. The negative approach to proving that you should be focusing on eternal things and not things that are limited is simply the common sense behind it. It doesn't make sense to invest in something that is going to come to an end if I have the option to invest in something that is eternal. That's easy. Then he says the second way of proving that emunah is true, that creating a relationship with your Creator is the only thing that you should be focusing on in this world as your primary goal, he says, is to speak with Him with simple innocence and to ask Him to show that He's listening. This is what I've said many times in the Trust Factor podcast. It says, "Ftach li petach kepinchon shel machat," open for me an opening the size of a pin. "Ve'ftach lecha petach kepinchon shel ulam," and I will open up for you an opening the size of an auditorium. You have to come to Him with simple innocence. Ask Him, God, I know I haven't had a relationship with you. I know that I haven't been connected to you. I know that I know very little, if anything, about who you are and how you run this world, and I haven't made room for you in my life. But I'd like to try. I'd like to give it a shot. And therefore, I need help. I need you to show me that you're involved in my life. Pick an area of your life where you've had a difficult time, where you've worked for a long time trying to achieve a good outcome and it hasn't worked, and ask for assistance in that area. And then sit back and watch and be persistent. Continue to ask until He shows you that He is there. Trust me, my friends, I've been doing this for 20 years. I've been speaking to people who've been doing this at new stages of their lives for the very first time, or have been doing this for 50, 60, 70 years. I'm telling you that it works. You will only know with absolute certainty when you take action, when you actually do this, when you actually call out to him and you ask for assistance, and then you have the eyes to see it. You will see the things that have been difficult in your life suddenly become easy. You will see his hand in your life, and that will be the beginning of the rest of your life. Have an amazing day. Thank you for spending time with us on the Trust Factor podcast. If you've heard something today that moved you, save this episode and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss upcoming conversations that challenge, empower, and uplift. And if you're on social media, connect with us. Leave your thoughts. Drop a quote that resonated with you. Hashtag the Trust Factor podcast. Until next time, keep growing in your trust and keep living with purpose. I'm Jesse Revivo, and this has been the Trust Factor podcast. Thanks for listening.